The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Michelle Hamer, your program advisor for SMU's web design and graphic design programs. A bit of background about myself. I've been working in higher ed for 8 years as an instructor as well as in admissions and program advisement for professional and graduate education. I have also worked professionally in web design and graphic design areas, both in corporate agency design and as a freelancer. Looking at the attendance here, which is absolutely wonderful to see you all, I see that I've spoken with many of you during the past couple of weeks about our wonderful programs. I want to let you know that we really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to join us for this information session. The web and graphic design programs consist of a combination of in-class, hands-on, experiential learning in a computer lab environment using your own laptop and online instructor-led classes. Our instructors are experienced professionals who are currently practicing in their fields, which allow them to bring their real-world experience to the classroom, ensuring that your learning is both informative and engaging. Okay, at this time I just want to take care of a couple housekeeping items. You should see a hand icon above your name, and if you could go ahead and click on that icon just to let us know that the audio is working properly for you and you can all hear us. Great, I see some hands going up. There we go. Okay, thank you. All right, at this point you can actually click on that hand and those will go away and we'll know that you have no questions. Thanks. You'll also see a questions area. During the course of the presentation, if you have a question, this is where you can ask it by typing in, and John and I will be happy to answer those questions at the end of our session. So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to our presenter this evening, John Horn. Since entering the field in 1997, John has built more than 50 websites for businesses and nonprofit organizations, and he has managed the production of design of dozens of print pieces totaling well over 1 million individual units. And I'll hand it over to John.
Great, thank you, Michelle. And I'll start by just echoing Michelle's gratitude to everyone for taking some time and attending this tonight. Hopefully we can make it well worth your while, answer many of your questions, and help you make that decision as to whether enrolling and earning a certificate in either website design or graphic design is right for you. As Michelle said, I've been working in the field for quite some time. I started doing website design professionally around 1997 and freelanced for a number of years, and then have continued to be involved in both website design and graphic design in various capacities ever since. I'm the curriculum designer for the certificates here at SMU and have occasionally taught courses in the program as well. So our goal here tonight for you is really to answer a couple of questions. First question is earning a certificate in either website design or graphic design right for you? And I'll take a moment to just clarify that these are two separate certificates. You may know that, but we've combined the presentation about these two because we find that many people are either coming from one field or the other and are trying to expand, or maybe trying to decide between a career in web design or graphic design. They obviously have a good amount of overlap. They're both very visually related. And so this presentation, or this information session, we're going to be talking about both of these certificates, but I'll be clear about when we're talking about the web design versus graphic design and when some of the aspects, such as the admissions process and such, are consistent between the two. But if you're on the fence and maybe thinking about or trying to decide which is right for you, hopefully we can help you make that decision. If not, we're happy to talk to you after the session and help you make that decision. So that's the first question. Is it right? Does it make sense for you to earn a certificate in either website design or graphic design? And what's that going to do for you? What are the career options that are out there for people with certificates in one of these areas? The second question we're going to try to answer is SMU the right place for you to do that? And obviously we think it is, but we'll talk a little bit about how our particular certificate is structured, what we think are some of the advantages of it, some of the unique aspects of what you get from a certificate at SMU, and hopefully help you make that decision as well. So without any further ado, let me begin conversation around kind of earning one of these certificates by talking about what you can do with it. So by earning a certificate in web or graphic design, there's a lot of different career paths or employment paths that you can go down. First of all, a lot of people freelance. And in particular, the web industry is so young. I mean, 20 years ago, there were essentially no professional web designers. And even 10 years ago, there were not nearly as many people as there are now. So you do see a lot of people that are working in the web industry and the graphic design industry that don't have a full degree in it, but that have some experience, they have a portfolio, and are well respected in the industry. My personal degree was in psychology, and I've, as I said, worked as a web designer starting in 1997, and then a graphic designer probably from about 1999 on. So a lot of people will freelance. If you're the kind of person that enjoys working on a lot of different projects, working with different clients, getting some insight into how different organizations work and their business models and their services and products and such, freelancing can be really interesting. I did this for a time. I've built websites and did design work for organizations as varied as restaurant chains, high-end restaurant chains, to accounting firms and law firms, to small businesses that did things I didn't even know existed. And of course, as a freelancer, you've got a lot of flexibility in your schedule. You can essentially set your own hours from day to day. You can, within reason, take vacations when you choose to. You know, the income stream can be a bit up and down. You know, some months are great as a freelancer, some months aren't. And there are some people for whom that sort of income variability is a challenge, and that may not be right. But for those that can kind of are okay or comfortable with kind of fluctuations in revenue from month to month, freelancing is a great option. Many other people, especially early in their career, choose to go to work in a web or graphic design firm. You still get to work on a variety of projects. You don't have quite as much flexibility in setting your own schedule or choosing your own work, but you do have the consistency of knowing that you're going to get a paycheck you know, a couple times a month. And for many people, that's a strong draw, as well as perhaps the opportunity to work with people who've been in the industry for a bit longer as you're starting your career to build some experience before you try to do it on your own. Now, there's also the opportunity to go to work in a particular organization, either as a webmaster in charge of their website or for part of their website, or working as an in-house designer. Most medium to large-sized organizations do employ people as either web professionals or graphic designers just to focus on that organization's needs. And if you're the kind of person who really likes to put everything you've got into something, say managing a website as a webmaster, and to see that site develop month after month, year after year, this can be a really attractive option. This is also a good option, we find, for people who maybe have a background in a particular industry, where, you know, if you've worked in construction, or you've worked in real estate, or you've worked in some area, going to work and using these new skills of web or graphic design, but pairing those with your experience and history in a particular industry can make you a really good fit for a webmaster or in-house designer position. And then there's also people who are looking to earn a certificate, not because they want to be working full-time as web or graphic designers, but because adding these skill sets and this credential to your resume and your background make you more employable, and they make you a stronger asset to any organization. especially in the last 5 or 6 years with the economic downturn. We're finding that more people are being asked to do a variety of jobs and roles within organizations. So having the ability to kind of multitask and to serve as a webmaster or spend some of your time as a designer in addition to other duties makes you a really versatile and thus valuable employee, or perhaps ups the chances that you can find a job if you're looking to change. And then the last thing I'll mention is that we see a decent percentage of people going through one of these 2 certificates for their own needs. So if you were thinking about launching an online business or even a kind of brick-and-mortar traditional business, having a background in website design to help manage the website for that business, or graphic design to put together, flyers and brochures or maybe online ads and so forth, can be a real asset. So we see entrepreneurs earning these credentials just so that they can be more hands-on in these areas of their business. So this certainly is not an exhaustive list, but these are just some good examples of the kind of opportunities that are out there for someone with a web or graphic design certificate. So with that, I'm going to move on and talk about a little bit some more specifics about the certificate in web design, and then we'll do the same thing for the certificate in graphic design. So why a certificate in website design? What is it about the web design industry that's attractive? Well, as I mentioned, in my background, I got into this area because I really loved the pace of the technology change in website design. And that was probably doubly true back in the late 90s, but continues to be true even today. Website design is one of the industries in which that in my opinion, has the greatest rate of innovation and technological change of anything that's out there. It's still maturing. It's still growing, as we'll talk about, at a rapid pace. But if you're the type of person that loves figuring things out and developing new techniques and new approaches, website design is a really exciting industry to be in, because the technologies that we're using, the software we're using, changes dramatically every few years. So the way that we create websites today is different than it was even in 2010, and significantly different than it was back in, say, 2007 or 2008. So that's one of the things that I think attract a lot of people to website design, as well as maybe the blend of the visual sort of design aspects with the technology. And that was important for me and continues to be. I love the technology, but I'm not a pure coder. And there are certainly lots of people who are really good at that can do database design and programming code all day long. But I like the blend of both that side, the technology side, and the visual side that you get from website design. Now, in terms of the industry growth, back in 1995, which is about when the web industry really began, there were less than 1,000 firms in the entire United States offering website design as a professional service. Fast forward 10 years, you're looking at 30,000 firms. These are not jobs. These are actual companies. Went from 1,000 to 30,000. And then over the next 3 years, increased by another 20,000, and then in the next 3 years, increased by another 20,000. And chances are by 2014, 3 years after the 70,000 figure, you're going to be looking at even higher numbers here. So the web industry is expanding dramatically. It's still growing. Here's some data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics that says since the 90s, it's been growing at one of the fastest rates of any profession, and it's still expected to grow by 22% over the next 10 years. So that means 22% more jobs in website design 10 years from now than there are now, and that's significantly faster than the average for most professions. The other thing that's nice about website design is that it's an interesting job. It pays fairly well, as we'll talk about. The Wall Street Journal, once every 2 or 3 years, puts out a list of top jobs, and they use a variety of different rubrics to sort of determine their ranking for jobs. It includes the earning potential of the job, even things like safety factors of, are you at risk of being injured in this job, kind of quality of life that in the job, and web. You can see they call it a web developer, but this is their generic term for people producing websites. Ranked as the number 15 job out of some 200 plus that they review. And it's one of the few jobs that are in the top 20 that you can enter into, one of the top professions you can enter into without a degree in that particular area. Obviously, there aren't going to be a lot of people jumping into the petroleum engineering field or some of these others, but web design, you really can come into it and do very well with a professional certificate in that, and it has a lot of advantages. The median salary, according to salary.com, is around $51,000 a year. This, of course, is going to vary greatly based on experience. I don't want to mislead anyone into thinking that that's an expected salary for someone entering the field, but that's a median salary for people who are working in website design and have been in the field for a period of time, and that's a pretty competitive salary. Obviously, some people earn lots more than that if they're extremely good at it, or extremely experienced, and a lot of people are going to earn significantly less as they kind of get their start. But $51,000 a year is a reasonable median salary for someone working as a professional web designer. So let's take a moment to talk about graphic design and why you might earn a certificate in graphic design. So the graphic design industry has obviously been around for much longer than website design. You could arguably say that graphic design goes back hundreds of years to when books and materials were produced by hand. But certainly in the last 30 years, the graphic design industry has really matured and developed a significant technological slant. So we use software today that can produce design elements that were really just practically impossible just a few decades ago. And this industry, because of the technological advances in computing power, has changed significantly. And then I would also say that the internet and the access to things like high-quality imagery and fonts and things like that has really democratized graphic design and opened up the potential for doing some really fantastic things without huge budgets, which means a much larger percentage of businesses and organizations are using graphic designers and employing graphic designers to produce professional quality pieces. The graphic design industry, as you can see here, expected to grow by 13% over the next 10 years. Now, that's not as fast as the website design industry, but there are over 250,000 graphic design jobs in the U.S. As you can see, in 2010, it was 280,000, and that's been increasing. So a 13% increase out of this large job pool of graphic designers is a lot of new jobs that are going to be created in the graphic design area. So this area is growing at a rapid pace, and there's a lot of opportunities out there for graphic designers. Now, in terms of what graphic designers do, what's interesting for me is how much this is how many more areas we find graphic designers involved in than maybe historically they were. So graphic designers are creating everything from book covers to digital billboards to annual reviews. A lot of nonprofit organizations or organizations like the Cox Business School produce an annual review, and a graphic designer puts this whole piece together for them. Graphic designers also are often called upon to do the design work for websites, mock-ups and sort of initial prototype designs because of their background in color theory and typography and so forth. So you often find graphic designers having some role, especially in larger website projects. Obviously, graphic designers get involved with creating logos of all different types, but also product packaging. So if you look around probably at your desk or wherever you might be sitting at home or in the workplace, you can probably spot a dozen or more items that that the packaging for which was put together by a graphic designer. And then, of course, there's all the more traditional things that we think about of graphic designers doing, like flyers and postcards and trifold brochures. So graphic designers really have a broad impact on a lot of businesses and their marketing, their packaging, and the way they present themselves. Now, the types of techniques that graphic designers use. Obviously, graphic designers are heavily skilled in the use of graphic design software. So the logos you see here, Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, and Acrobat, are the 4 core products that we focus on in the technology aspect of the certificate at SMU, because these are the industry-leading software applications that you see graphic designers using most often. But in addition to the software, graphic designers, and knowing how to technically use the software, graphic designers also have to have an understanding of a lot of theory, an understanding of how to manipulate digital photography to produce the kind of results you want, whether that's removing red eye from a photo, or changing the background in a photo, or just simply touching up aspects of taking a cloudy sky, making it a blue sky, things like that, just to get the right impact out of that image. Graphic designers do a lot of that. They also occasionally are creating elements from scratch, illustration. Now, we don't often do this by hand anymore, but digital illustration using software like Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop to create things like logos or design elements from scratch is a common skill set for graphic designers. Then you've also got various layout techniques, understanding of white space and kind of balance of elements on a page. You've got color theory, understanding what colors are complementary and how to produce certain emotions or certain responses from your audience by using color. There's an understanding of typography and how different fonts, serif, sans serif, and the variations therein can affect the look of a piece. And, of course, professional printing. So once you've produced whatever that visual element it is, making sure that whatever medium it's going to eventually be sort of created in, whether that's being printed at a professional print shop or put up on a billboard or whatever, making sure that you understand how to prep that finished product so that it presents in the right way on whatever medium that is. So these are all skills that graphic designers use. And if that stuff sounds interesting and exciting and fun for you, then this could be a really good career. I'd also just take a moment and mention that according to the U.S. Department of Labor, the Dallas, Plano, Irving sort of metropolitan area is one of the top 10 metro areas in the entire United States for graphic design employment. So you can kind of see where Dallas is on the map here. But Dallas has one of the highest employment levels in the country for graphic designers. So that just speaks well for this particular area. And then median salary for graphic designers is right around $43,000, $44,000. Now, of course, that's it's a few years old. This data doesn't come out every year, so it's probably just a little bit higher than that. But again, a very competitive salary, especially when you look at it compared to, say, all occupations, which the average is $33,000, almost $34,000, significantly above that. Now, again, these are median salaries, not necessarily where someone would start at a salary, but certainly something that you might expect to earn after a few years of experience in the industry. So on that note, let's turn our attention to talking about the certificates here at SMU. What are some of the things that differentiate these certificates from others that you might find, and things that make us really proud of the educational offerings that we have? Well, the first thing that we'll talk about is SMU. Obviously, SMU is a top-ranked university in the world, and as such, the quality of the program, the academic quality, and the expectations that we have for the learning and the students' experience are very high. And that also means that after earning a certificate from SMU and going out into the marketplace, having that certificate on your resume from Southern Methodist University really means something. This is not a certificate that you pay your money and you get the piece of paper and you walk out. This is an academic program. It is a non-credit. It's not a credit program or a degree track program, but it is a full academic program with exams and graded projects. So earning this certificate and going out into the marketplace with the kind of educational background that comes from it and the credential really make you competitive. And that's something that we just feel like it has to be there to honor the brand of SMU. The second thing that really differentiates this program is the quality of the instructors in the program. So we've got the selection process that we go through in hiring instructors includes them submitting an application and a resume to come part. We review those. We get a lot of those. Once we review those, we look to see, do they have the background both professionally and academically? Have they taught this before? And are they actually working? Are they actively working in the industry? If both of those things are there, we bring them in for an interview, and we talk to them about their teaching philosophy, about what they're doing, their sort of understanding of the industry and trends in the industry, and then we actually have those instructors do a teaching demonstration for our staff, because we want to see how they interact with students, hypothetical students in their classroom, and whether they can create a learning environment that's not only instructive but also engaging. And if all of those things work out and we feel like that instructor is the right fit for the program, there's an ongoing evaluation. After each course that they teach, we get feedback from the students and make sure that those instructors are hitting the level of performance that we expect. Now, the things that we look for in instructors and the criteria that we look for, one, the instructor has to have the technical expertise. So we look for people who are experts in their field, whether that's web design or graphic design or some more narrow area of one of those two fields. And then we look for real-world experience. So they not only have to be an expert, but they've got to be out there using it, because in both of these areas, the technologies and the techniques are changing at a rapid pace. Web design even faster than graphic design, but both of them are changing. So we need instructors who can come into the classroom and say, here's the techniques that were being used 18 months ago. This is how it's changed, and this is how you want to be prepared as you enter the workforce in these areas, because this is how the leading web or graphic design firms are doing it today. And then the third thing we look for is classroom demeanor. They've got to be engaging. If you're like me and have taken a variety of kind of IT classes in the past, you know that the quality of instruction is just all over the place in technology-related programs. But the instructors in this program are people who can relate to students, who really just have a passion for teaching and make the learning experience, let's say, verge on fun. It should be engaging, should be something you want to come to class every night. And that's what we look for. And some of the instructors that we have in the program, just as a couple of examples, Kim Bauer is one of our instructors, has been working as a web professional for more than 12 years, probably 13 years by now, and has worked for some of these just amazing national brands, Nationwide, Blockbuster, American Airlines, all kinds of things. So just fantastic background. AJ Woods is a good example of one of our graphic design instructors. AJ was ranked on 2 separate years as the #1 Adobe certified instructor in the world. And he's the chapter leader for both the Acrobat and the InDesign user groups in the Dallas-Plano area. So instructors really bring a lot to the program, and we're very proud of the instructors we have working with us. The next differentiator that I'll talk about is the holistic aspect of the education. Now, in most web or graphic design certificates, they're going to focus on a couple of areas. They're going to focus on the creative. So this is your color theory, typography. How do you lay out web pages or lay out print pieces to look good? And they're also going to focus on the technical. How do I use Adobe Illustrator to create a certain effect, maybe a drop shadow or whatever it might be? How do I use HTML to code a page that'll have a certain look or certain effect? But that's where most educational programs stop. If you've got the creative and you've got the technical, you should be ready. And we certainly cover both of those areas thoroughly. But we go further. We also realize that to be successful in these industries, you have to understand a bit of project management and a bit of client management. And this is regardless of whether you are working as a freelancer or working internally, and maybe the client for you is your own employer, because you're an in-house designer or webmaster, but an understanding of how to run professional projects start to finish and deliver what's expected and manage expectations of, I would say, both clients and stakeholders that are involved in the project are really important. So we integrate aspects of those concepts throughout the program. And then lastly, industry trends, because if you pick up a textbook that was written 2 or 3 years ago on web design or even graphic design, it's going to be out of date. The techniques that we use are different, as I've mentioned, and also the software is different and changing constantly. Adobe comes out with new versions of its Creative Suite about once every 18 months. So we encourage our instructors to bring their understanding of where the industry is today and where the industry is going to be a year from now, 2 years from now, into the classroom to talk to you guys as students in the program about how do you need to be positioning yourself to do well in the industry. So all of those things get integrated into the program. And the fourth differentiator that I talk about is actually a good example of how we bring in some of those project and client management and industry trends, and that is the capstone project. So as a student in either of these certificates, you're going to have the opportunity as part of your educational experience to create professional quality work and apply the skills that you're learning. What you're seeing come up on the screen now are examples of capstone projects completed by students, by web design students. So these are real examples of websites created by students in this final capstone project. This is a 10-week instructor-guided practical where you get to take all of the technology skills and the theory that you've learned and apply it in a professional project. I'll show you some examples also of some graphic design projects that students have done. So in the web design area, you're going to be creating a professional website, a small-scale site, maybe between 5 to 10 pages, but a professional quality site start to finish. And you're going to apply a 6-stage process for building a site as you go through that. And as I mentioned, you'll be coached through that process by one of the instructors who will be kind of your guide, your mentor in that process. On the graphic design side, you're going to be creating a visual identity for a real or fictional organization. And I should say the same thing about the website design. The project that you choose is your project. It could be a fictional organization. It could be maybe your own business if you're thinking about starting as a freelancer. It could be for a small nonprofit that maybe you're affiliated with or a neighborhood association. It's your choice of project, but on the web design side, you'll be creating a fully functional published website, and on the graphic design side, you'll be creating a professional visual identity package for that organization. These are meant to mirror the kind of professional deliverables that you'll be expected once you get out into the workforce. And actually, this project can become the start or be added to your portfolio, which makes you more employable and gives you something to show to potential clients if you end up being a freelancer. So again, the 4 differentiators: the quality of the program, the SMU brand, the instructors teaching in the program, the holistic approach that goes beyond the technical and creative, as well as the capstone project, are things that we feel really set the program apart. Now, I'll talk for a moment about the specifics of the 2 certificate programs. I'll start by saying these are both blended learning programs. So the initial class and the capstone class are both taught in a live online fashion. So when I say a live online, it's what we in the industry call synchronous learning, which means all of the students and you will be logging on at the same time with an instructor. So you'll be holding class, but you'll be doing it online. So you can do it from the comfort of your home or your workplace. So that's how the introductory course and the capstone course are conducted. The technology-focused courses, so when you're learning HTML, cascading style sheets, Dreamweaver on the web design side, or when you're learning Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, those sorts of things, those are taught in the classroom. So it's because we feel like for those more technology-oriented topics, it's helpful to be able to have the instructor right there so they can look at your screen, you can see what they're doing. We feel like it's a better way to teach those technology topics. And I'll also mention that these 2 certificates are taught in a cohort model fashion. So what this means is that you will be progressing through the series of courses along with a set of other students. We limit the classes to 15 students, so they're small, they're intimate. You get a lot of interaction with your peers in the class and the instructors you go through. So these are what we call blended cohort programs. It is the format. And now, more specifically, in the web design program, this is how it's structured. So there are 4 courses that you will be completing. I mentioned the introductory course. We call that Starting and Running a Successful Website. And this is everything that you need to know, kind of nuts and bolts of how to actually get a website launched outside of the technology. So this is things like how to register a domain name. What are e-commerce options that are available for the website? How do you identify the target audience that you're trying to reach from the website? What does a website design template look like? How do you get a site registered on search engines once it's live? So it's all of this information that you need, but that's not related specifically to the software or the coding for the sites. Now, after that course, there's a series of software courses where you'll be learning HTML and cascading style sheets, which are the core languages for websites. You'll be learning Dreamweaver, which is a software package that many web designers use. It's what you call a WYSIWYG software, so it essentially helps you to write the HTML and CSS and potentially some other JavaScript or other code as well. And then you'll also be learning how to use Photoshop to create professional quality web graphics. Everything from buttons that you might put on a page to doing an entire design mock-up. And we even touch on a bit of Adobe Illustrator in that course, which is the software that's often used to do website mock-ups and design templates. So those are the 4 courses. Each course has a corresponding exam. that you as a student would take once you've completed the course. And then after completing the 4 courses, we have our 10-week certificate capstone. So this is where, as we mentioned, you'd be progressing through the process, this 6-stage process that we actually introduce in the Starting and Running a Successful Website class. But you'll be progressing through that process and building your own website in that certificate capstone. There's homework in that capstone as well as the final project, and those are graded, and that is how you complete the capstone and earn your certificate. So the graphic design certificate has a similar format. There are 5 courses in graphic design versus 4 in the website design, but the graphic design, a few of the graphic design courses are a bit shorter, so it ends up being the same, approximately the same number of hours and the same length of time to complete the certificate. But in the graphic design program, you'd be taking our Introduction to Graphic Design course, which focuses on all of the theory that you need to be a successful graphic designer. So page layout techniques, typography, color theory, balance, understanding of how to use various combinations of color and fonts and such to communicate information. Really good stuff in that course. Once you finish that course, then you go through a series of specific software courses where you're learning how to use Adobe Illustrator, you're learning how to use Adobe InDesign, you're learning how to use Photoshop, and you're learning how to use Adobe Acrobat. And this is not the Adobe Acrobat Reader, this is Adobe Acrobat Professional, which is used to prepare professional quality print or design pieces to send to professional print shops or to distribute electronically. So there's a lot more to Adobe Acrobat than a lot of people realize, because most people simply use it to open documents, but we're talking about using it to create and prepare documents. So Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, 3 different components that are used in some cases slightly interchangeably. Illustrator and InDesign have a lot of similarities, but you'll see that InDesign is often used for creating multi-page documents. So if you were doing an annual report or a catalog or something like that, you would almost certainly want to use Adobe InDesign, where Illustrator is used more for one-page items like flyers or postcards or designs that might be incorporated in. So if you're preparing an ad that's going to be sent off to be included in someone else's publication, you very well might use Adobe Illustrator to do that. And of course, Photoshop is used to prepare the imagery that might go into elements that are created in Illustrator or InDesign. So those are the courses that you'll study. There's a corresponding exam for each of those, just as with the web design certificate, and then there's the 10-week capstone that you'd complete with mentoring from one of the graphic design instructors in the program. So that's the flow. Throughout the program, you have access to SMUlearn.com, which is our online learning portal. This is where you'd be taking the online examinations after each of the courses. This is where you'll see all of the support materials for the capstone and the introductory courses as you're progressing through those. So once you enroll in the program, you get your own login and password to this portal site, and it will support your learning as you go through the program. Now, some details about the program. There's over 100 hours, not including the time that you'll be studying on your own. There's over 100 hours of actual contact and learning in each of the 2 certificates. It takes approximately 9 months, give or take, where some holidays fall to complete the certificate. So for those looking to start this fall, you'd be finishing up around summer of next year, earning the certificate. And this is a bring your own laptop program. For the online pieces of it, obviously you'll be doing that from your office or home, wherever. For the in-class portions of this, because we realize that if you're going to be a professional in these industries, it's helpful to work on your own system and your own software, so you're able to bring your own computer into the classroom and work off of that. Meanwhile, the instructor will be projecting their screen so you can see what they're doing, and they'll be able to come and actually work with you one-on-one if necessary during the class during the learning process. The cohort starting this fall will be scheduled as convenient evening classes. So if you have a daytime job, you can still attend the program. You're going to be meeting between 1 to 2 times per week, depending on what stage of the program you're in. For the introductory course and the capstone, you're not meeting multiple times a week. The introductory course meets once a week. When you're in the software courses portion of it, you'll be meeting a couple of times a week. And the capstone course actually meets, I believe, every other week. So all of the schedules and all that information we can clarify for you, and all that information is up on the website. But this is just to kind of set expectations for what the educational commitment is in terms of actually attending class is 1 to 2 evenings per week. In terms of entrance requirements, I mentioned this is a non-credit program. There's not a cumbersome application process for this. You can enroll at any time leading up to the start of the program. We do look for to either have a 4-year undergraduate degree or at least 4 years of professional work experience, just to make sure that you've got the background to be competitive in the industry once you earn your certificate. If you have questions about this, you certainly are welcome to talk to Michelle about your particular situation. In terms of completing the certificate, we ask that you complete all of the required courses and score at least a 75% or better on each of the exams. People always ask, well, what happens if I don't? Well, you get 2 chances on each exam. So if you take the exam and you don't achieve the 75% in your first shot, we encourage you to go back, study your book. You'll have the textbook for each of your courses. Study your materials, go over your notes, practice in the software if it's a software course that you're taking the exam for, and you get a second time to try to pass that exam. If you don't pass it the second time, then we're going to ask that you sit back in on a course and a future offering of the certificate just to make sure you really get that so that you've got mastery of that topic. In the capstone project, we look for a score of 70% or better on the capstone, and that includes grades for the homework through the capstone as well as the final project. And here again, if you don't earn that 70% or better in your first try with your submitted project at the end, you'll get feedback on that project. You can take that back, work on the project a little bit more, and then resubmit it. Once you graduate, so here are some of our recent graduates from the program. You have not only all of the hands-on experience and skills that you've learned from the classes, you have your lovely SMU certificate, which you can hang on your wall. You also, because of the capstone project, have a portfolio piece that you can show to potential employers or potential clients. And you also have a network of peers. So in going through this cohort together, the other students that are in the program with you become part of your professional network that you can draw on as you go out into the professional world of these industries. Maybe you take on a freelance project that's just a little bit too big for you to handle on your own. Well, you've got other people that you could reach out to and say, hey, could you take on a part of this? Could I subcontract it to you? And so forth. Or maybe you're just stuck on a particular challenge that you're trying to figure out. So you've got the experience, the certificate, the portfolio piece, and the network that comes out of the program. And I just thought we were so pleased with this this quote from one of our recent graduates that we thought we'd throw it up for you to take a look at. Just great stuff he had to say about the instructors, their communication skills, and commitment to the students that we're really proud of the program and proud of our graduates. The tuition for this program, so the tuition includes everything. There really are no other costs outside of the tuition. And the tuition includes your textbooks, all of the books and course materials, which is a book for each of the courses in the program, discounted pricing for your Adobe Creative Suite, access to that online testing center, the SMU Learn component, all of that's included, the coaching through the capstone, and the certificate that you get at graduation. And the total, the tuition, if I'm not mistaken, it ends up with all of the courses is $3,850, and I believe there are some discounts if you are, for instance, an SMU staff member or an alumni, things like that. But that's a good time for me to turn things back over to Michelle, who can talk to you a little bit about the financing options for the program, as well as what the enrollment process it looks like and what your next steps might be.
Great. Thanks, John. As many of you know, this program is through our continuing education and professional development office. And because it's a non-credit program and a non-degree program, it's not eligible for the traditional financial aid that you would normally apply for when you are seeking a degree. Therefore, what we have to offer through SMU's Cape office is a relationship with Sallie Mae. And Sallie Mae is a lender that has secured with us a continuing education, smart options, low interest loan. Now this is a loan, and when you apply for this loan, it will be based on your credit score. Therefore, we try to encourage individuals to just have in mind a cosigner, because if you're not approved independently, oftentimes they will ask you to reapply with a cosigner. The other option that we like to extend to individuals is that if you have a relationship with your credit union or your current banking institution, lots of times you can get personal loans through your financial institution that are also on a lower interest side, and because you have a relationship with them, you've been banking with them, it tends to be a little bit more of a streamlined process from what we've heard from some of our past students. Also, if you're working in a place where you may be utilizing these skills, or your employer has asked you to seek out something to in the way of web design or graphic design, there's also the opportunity for employment reimbursement, whether it be for the skills or a portion of the course or your full tuition. We can speak with you about the process to do that as well. And the enrollment process is fairly simple. Actually, on our website, you'll see a link that is Enroll Now, and if you have a major credit card, you can enroll right online and pay for it right away with your credit card. If you would like to pay by check, there is also in that same area where you will see the enrollment section an opportunity to download the enrollment form, the registration form. You can complete that, and then you can mail it into our office, and all of the contact information will be on that form as well, along with your check. And I believe that's it for the enrollment and the financing portion. But before I get off and let John answer some of these questions, I just want to let you know that each of these programs that starts in September, we have capped the enrollment at 15 for graphic design and 15 for web design. So we have quite a few people on this information session that are, and many of you that I've spoke with that are very enthusiastic about the program. So I do encourage you to seriously think about enrolling as soon as you can, just to make sure that you secure your space in this program. We are currently looking at scheduling our next cohort program and are working with the university to secure the rooms and schedule for that. So this is our, right now, the one that would be, you'd be able to finish by June of next year. And I just want to let you know that after this information session, over the course of the next couple of days, I will reach out to each one of you with an email, a copy of this presentation that has been recorded, and the opportunity for you to ask any questions that you might have, and we hope that we've been able to answer most of them here. So I'll turn it over to John because I see that that question board is filling up. So thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, so I do see several questions here, and we'll try to answer as many as we can over the next few minutes. If you have, there's certainly time for you to sneak in some additional questions, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. I will say if we don't get to your question, we'll make sure to follow up with you over the next few days, as Michelle mentioned, and get answers to all of those. As a great first question, I see back early on in the presentation, Sylvia asked, with the growth of everything going through the computer and being digital, what's going on with the future of print with graphic design? Well, and the first thing that I'll mention, and I tried to kind of slide this in a little bit as I was talking about the graphic design industry, is that, certainly there is, print is not going away. As we talked about product packaging and all of that, there's a huge print design industry. But also, in our graphic design certificate, we don't focus exclusively on graphic design for print. Graphic design is being used more and more, and graphic design skills are being used to produce digital elements that are taking the place of print. So I'm sure all of you have seen more than you'd like of digital ads. Well, those ads are created by graphic designers, as are the digital billboards and all kinds of other mediums that we're seeing. So the future of graphic design is very strong. The print aspect of graphic design, I think, is going to hold steady. It's going to be there. But the digital graphic design area is just exploding with all of these new mediums that we have through which to show ads and convey information also digitally. Let's see. Avi asks, for the web design program in particular, is there a requirement to purchase software? And there is. So in the web design program, we use the Adobe Creative Suite. We use different software from that. So Adobe owns the Dreamweaver package, and of course Adobe owns Photoshop. So those are the two software packages that are required for the web design program, and most of our students choose to just get the entire Creative Suite because I think the cost of getting the whole suite is pretty comparable to just getting Photoshop and Dreamweaver as one-off packages. And then I think I saw a follow-up on that asking about the discount for the Creative Suite. So as many of you may know, Adobe recently shifted its model from being able to purchase software outright to essentially licensing the software. And so, in as much as we're able to get students academic discounts for the software, Adobe is kind of going back and forth a little bit on whether non-credit students are qualified for that. But we have had students historically have been able to acquire academic versions of that software. But in either case, the cost is under $50 per month for the full Adobe Creative Suite. and then there are some discounts if we're able to qualify you for the academic version of that. It's actually significantly discounted even off of that price. Let's see. Another question is, let's see. Emily says she has no background, not to call her out, in graphic design or web design, and will this certificate help you if you're starting from kind of the beginning? And it does. I would not encourage you to enroll in this certificate if you're not comfortable using a computer and using it, reasonably well, but we don't expect that you have any background in web design or graphic design at all. We start from the beginning on those. So if you are comfortable browsing online, using common software like email and Microsoft Office packages, things like that, if you're comfortable with the computer and have a pretty good sense of technology and such, you should do absolutely fine in the program. We have there's no expectation that you come in with any graphic or web design background. Let's see if I've got time for maybe just one or two more quick questions. Josh asked about estimated cost of materials. All of the materials costs are included except for, obviously, students acquiring their own laptop and their own Adobe Creative Suite. So if you've got the Adobe software and you've got the laptop, we provide all of the books and materials for the class are included in the tuition price. So that's about it. I see some other questions. We're running a couple minutes past. If there's a question that you've submitted that I have not been able to answer, we will certainly follow up with you and make sure that you that you get an answer to that program. I will answer one last question as just as a good segue into our closing out of the program. So let's see. Asked, what is the deadline to register for the program? And as Michelle mentioned, the programs are starting, our fall programs are starting in about the 4th week of September, September 23rd, 24th. Both of these certificates start the same week. And there is essentially no deadline to register. You could register even up to a few days before they began. However, as Michelle was saying, we've got a lot of interest in this program. We had over 100 attendees sign up for the information session tonight and already have some people enrolled in each of the 2 certificates. And with a cap of 15 students, we do encourage you that if you really want to get into this fall certificate cohort, to go ahead and register early and make sure that you secure your spot. And Michelle can certainly talk to you about that and help facilitate that process. Anything to add to that, Michelle?
No, I think that was perfect. The only thing that I mean, we are capping it at 15. We do recommend that you enroll at least 2 weeks ahead of the course start date so you can get the orientation materials and the logon information. And if you're planning to apply for a loan through Sallie Mae, you're going to want to plan about 3 weeks so that we can process that loan.
Good point. Very good point. And as everyone can see, Michelle's contact information, her office number, and email are up on the slide, as well as the website addresses for each of the 2 certificates. So if you have additional questions or just want to read up a little bit more on these 2 programs, please visit our website. We've got lots of frequently asked questions up there and lots of additional information that hopefully will help you help answer your questions and help you make an informed decision. But we certainly appreciate your time this evening and your attention for the program. We hope that you'll strongly consider these and in the end, hope that we'll see you in class. Anything to add, Michelle?
Nope. Thank you very much for attending, and I will be reaching out to you over the course of the next couple days.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful night. We hope to see you soon.
Bye-bye.